Philippians chapter 4, as we continue to make our way through Philippians. We have one more sermon in this book, and we'll be done. Chapter 4, verses 1 through 9. Therefore, my brothers, you whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, that is how you should stand firm in the Lord, dear friends. I plead with Euodia and I plead with Syntyche to agree with each other in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you, loyal yokefellow, help these women who have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. Paul's coming to the end of his letter. I think his emotions are welling up as he's thinking about the Philippians, welling up inside of him, and he says, those whom I love and those who I long for, you are my joy and my crown. He loved the Philippians. He's thinking about all he's said to them thus far and what he's about to say, and his plea to them is simply stand firm. Stand firm in the message of the gospel. Don't let anyone convince you that your works can ever save you. Stand firm in your participation in spreading the gospel. Stand firm in your love for each other, thinking more of others than you do yourselves. Don't allow anyone or anything to cause divisions or strife among you. Churches today need to hear that. Amen. Now, Paul knew that these two women were having an argument. Not unusual, right? No, just kidding. Euodia and Syntyche, I think is how you say it. They were having some kind of spat. We have no idea what it was about. We have no idea how serious it was, although obviously it was serious enough for Paul to mention in his letter, so it must have been fairly serious. But he appeals to them, please agree in the Lord. In other words, whatever is dividing you, get rid of it. Come to a place where you can stand on the same ground. And now it would appear that the cause of this spat wasn't a theological issue. It wasn't that one believed in the deity of Christ and the other didn't. It wasn't even a moral issue that one of them had done something sinful to the other. It was simply that the two women could not agree. You know, today it would be the color of the carpet or the color of the walls or whatever. Nothing that has morality to it or a theology to it, just something that they couldn't agree on, but something that was causing them to be disagreeable toward each other. So he's exhorting them, I believe, to agree in the Lord, which means to agree that the cause of Christ and their participation in it is far greater and far more important than whatever it is they're disagreeing over. Agree in the Lord that your spat needs to cease because your spat is causing the mission of Christ to be interrupted. So just give it up for the cause of Christ. Think more of the other person than you do yourself, and get on with the mission that God has placed us here for. I am totally amazed. I've been in the pastorate for 40 years. Totally amazed at the things that cause division in churches. Totally amazed at the things that people argue about. Now, granted, in our society where there is so much evil, there are things that legitimately can cause a division in the church. When sin is involved and no one wants to deal with it, something's going to happen, and it may cause divisions. But most churches are not dealing with those kinds of things. Somebody said something that hurt my feelings, and, I'm just not going back. Well, in those situations, I say, why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be wronged? Christ didn't deserve to go to the cross for us. We can bear with most things that would normally cause divisions and arguments. They're just simple things, mundane things, benign things, but it's amazing how they get blown out of shape and cause divisions. And if we were really following Paul's instructions in this letter to the Philippians, thinking more of others than we do ourselves, most disagreements wouldn't even begin. They wouldn't begin. But we're human. We're human. That's no excuse. We're sinful. And these disagreements sadly do occur. And these kinds of disagreements, whenever there's conflict between you and someone else, it's very easy for that to cause us to feel anxious, to have anxiety. Anxiety is a fixation of thought about something that produces negative emotion within us. It's placing our thoughts on something, someone, some situation, some issue that just overwhelms us with negative, dire emotions at times. It's to be overly concerned and burdened for something. What's another word we could use for that? To be overly concerned and burdened for something. Yeah. No, anxious is what we're describing. What's another word other than anxious? Worry. There you go. It's the very same word in the Greek that Jesus said, do not worry. Do not be anxious. The interesting thing about that word is it can be used in both a negative and a positive way. If I'm fixing my mind on the Lord, that's a good thing. If the fixation is on the Lord, the same word can be used. But when it's not, when it's on negative stuff, then it's called anxiety. Anxiety is not only produced by that division that you have with someone, but that anxiety produces division within our own being. We know that God is in control, right? And we know God is always good, right? And we know God is always working for us, for our good, right? But our anxiety at times tends to overwhelm those truths. The fact that God has this doesn't hold as much weight as, Thus, our being is divided between, is God really good? Is God really going to take care of me? Or no, he's not. Paul said, don't be anxious about anything. Now, in this particular situation, I believe he's probably referring to the division in the church at Philippi, probably talking about Euodia and Syntyche, because divisions in a church certainly cause anxiety, and they cause us as a church even to bounce back and forth from God's mission to our mission as an individual, it causes us to bounce back and forth between God's mission and our mission. Our mission is we want to do this, but so-and-so is stopping us. Well, that isn't even God's mission for you, so why are you worried about it? God's mission versus our mission. It's valuable insight, I think, what Paul says here for anything that causes us anxiety. And that's where I want to go today. I don't know of any divisions here, any relationships that are causing anxiety within our church here at Westside. I don't know of them, okay? So I don't want to dwell on that aspect. But I do want to dwell on the aspect that what Paul says is very good for us to realize in these days. And it's not that I don't think divisions can come. We've mentioned that already. The possibility of divisions within any church, it's always there. Whenever you have more than one person, there's always the competition, there's always the possibility for conflict. The way to overcome that, love. The way to keep it out, think more of others than you do yourself. Realize what's really of eternal value and what isn't. Let go of what isn't of eternal value. With that said, though, allow me to turn our focus on the things that I believe are causing a lot of anxiety in our world, even among Christians. Many today are living in absolute fear and anxiety over COVID-19. Now, most of us have had a loved one or close friend die from the virus. Young people now are dying. Logan Hurst, 40 years old, young family, died of COVID. Parents are burying their children. Shouldn't happen. People are anxious, worried that they may be next. Many are living in a constant, overwhelming fear or anxiety. And on the other side of that coin would appear to me to be the state of our nation and government. It's either COVID or our government. Our nation is divided politically. Our nation is very divided politically. The problem, though, is that those political markers that are dividing us aren't political markers 25, 30 years ago that divided us. The political markers that are dividing us now have much to do with what's right and what's wrong, what's evil and what's righteous, what's godly and what's not godly. And the evil of our day is in your face. Evil and righteousness in our land has become more obvious, clearer, transparent. No one's trying to hide evil anymore. And in many ways, it would appear that evil is winning. And that which is right, have you noticed it's not just wrong now? That which is right is not just wrong, it's disgusting. The way we used to think about evil and how it's slowly caused us to just say, oh, well, it's okay. You know, the way we used to think about it, that it was an abomination to the Lord, that's the way people now who are against God, who are on Satan's side, who are evil, think about what's really true and what's really right. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that Texas would try to save babies. It's disgusting. That's the way they look at it. And that which is truly wrong now is righteous. That's the world we live in. Now, it is absolutely reasonable, possible, and expected that you're probably going to have some anxiety over these two issues: the virus and the state of our world. But as followers of Jesus Christ, we should not allow this anxiety to be our focus. We need to be concerned, but it shouldn't be our focus. And we should not allow that anxiety to determine the state of our emotions or our will to move forward in God's mission. We can't just throw up our arms and say, it's useless. God's let us go. No, God still has a calling on our lives. He still wants us to be involved in his mission. So what was Paul's exhortation? Rejoice in the Lord always. Hallelujah. And again, I say rejoice. Who are you thinking of when you're rejoicing in the Lord? The Lord. And if I'm thinking of the Lord, how can I ever be overcome with any problem in this world? Rejoice. Lift your thoughts to God. What does it mean to rejoice? It means to declare joyfully the praises of the Lord. I can't just say rejoice. I mean, that's like saying praise. That's not praise. Praise is when I say, Father, you are the only true and living God. That's praise. It's not praise you. Rejoicing is not saying rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Rejoicing is saying, God, how you have loved me so much to send your son Jesus Christ to be my Savior, and I didn't have to do a thing for it, and you did it when I hated you. Thank you. That's rejoicing. Rejoicing that God has done for us what we can't do for ourselves. And when we do that, we're thinking of God, and our mind is directed to him. To rejoice means to be glad. To be glad. Remember that, because we're going to sing that at the end. If our mind is on the Lord, I believe it is difficult to be anxious. Let your reasonableness or your gentleness be known to all. Reasonableness. It means gentle, it means kind, it means tolerant. The Enduring Word Commentary says this. This word describes the heart of a person who will let the Lord fight his battles. I needed to hear that this week. I need to hear it today. I'm going to need to hear it this week. We don't have to fight our battles. I don't have to battle someone who's wronged me. I don't have to battle this. I don't have to battle that. God is on my side. God is fighting my fight. I don't have to be unreasonable with anybody. I don't have to be ungentle with anyone. God will take care of it. He goes on to say, he knows that vengeance is mine, says the Lord. It describes a person who is really free to let go of his anxieties and all the things that cause him stress because he knows that the Lord will take up his cause. Rejoice and realize God's on your side. And because God's on your side, you don't have to argue. You don't have to complain. You don't have to fight your way through. Let God be God. And then he says the Lord is at hand. That obviously means Jesus is coming again. When we think about the fact that Jesus is coming again, don't the things of this world lose their charm? I mean, really, everything we place so much value in this world is going to burn. It's going to burn. And that also means he's coming again. I don't need to worry about the things of this world, the relationships that are, whoever's hurt me or whatever. I don't need to worry about that. God's coming again. He's going to take care of it all one day. And it also means not just that he's at hand and that he's coming, but he's at hand, he's here. I've learned to say in most of the funeral services that are preached today that God is present with you today. And then I say, don't take that to mean that he's way out there somewhere. God is actively pursuing every one of us every day. Amen. With his comfort, his care, his wisdom, his knowledge. The Lord is at hand. He is with me. Why would I think something can bother me outside of his will? If God is with me, he's for me, who can be against me? And then he says, pray about it. I've learned that most people don't pray about most things. I think that as followers of Christ, we need to pray about everything. Amen. Everything. Everything that's bothering us, every evil thought and feeling that I have, we just need to take it to the Lord. Prayer. He says prayer and supplications. Prayer is just a general word for praying. Supplication is making a request. Some people say, I don't want to ask God for anything. Well, you have not because you ask not. Ask God. Ask God to give you wisdom. If there's something going on, ask Him to fix it. God will take care. I can't tell you how many times there's been issues in churches and I've just said, Lord, if I deal with this, it's going to blow up in my face. It did happen once, as you well know. But many, many other times, God took care of it. I just said, Lord, I can't do it. You can. And He did. Take everything to the Lord. And here's the promise. If we take that which is causing us to be anxious to the Lord promises that that the peace of God will guard our hearts and our minds in Christ. Where is our anxiety? It's in our heart and it's in our mind. And He says, if I take that which has given me anxiety and place it before the Lord, He'll give my mind peace and my heart peace. And that's if we just continue to leave it there. Don't take it back. Leave it there. And he goes on to say, well, let me just say this. It is the Spirit of God that transforms our hearts and our minds. We can't do it ourselves. And it is as we focus on the Lord and bring Him our cares that He will protect and He will transform our hearts and our minds. But it's only as our focus is on Him that transformation will take place. Sounds a lot like Colossians, doesn't it? Be ye heavenly minded. It's when we focus on the things of this world that anxiety overwhelms us. But when I'm thinking about what God's done for me and what He's got coming, I have no anxiety whatsoever. So Paul goes on talking about the mind. Think about things that are true, sincere, upright, honest, just, honorable. Those things which are heavenly, majestic, or awe-inspiring. Just, righteous, pure, perfect, or holy, lovely, acceptable, pleasing, commendable, well spoken of, trustworthy, excellence, virtue, or moral excellency, worthy of praise. Now, if there's not a more redundant list of words in the scripture, I don't know of one. It's like Paul just got on a roll here, and he just rolling over a bunch of words that he thinks are good and we need to think about them, and a lot of them mean the same thing. What's he saying? His main point, I believe, is think about those things that are positive and of a godly nature. Truth, righteousness, justice, holiness. Things that are associated with heaven and God are the things that our hearts and our minds should be thinking about. Listen to me. Beware of what you're thinking. Be aware of what you're thinking. Because what we think about, what we allow our minds to meditate on, to ponder on, will ultimately determine how we feel and what we do. Our mind is extremely important in walking with God. And it is absolutely essential to our inner peace. Listen to Romans 8. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh. But those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. So we have a choice. Where's my mind going to be set? Flesh, spirit. Flesh, spirit. Flesh produces flesh. Spirit produces spirit. For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. Romans 12. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. 2 Corinthians 10, verse 4. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. As followers of Christ, we must practice the disciplining of our minds, of our thoughts. We must lay our minds before the throne of God and ask the Holy Spirit to give us the mind of Christ. We can't conjure it up ourselves. We can't make it happen. We just put our sail up and allow the wind of the Spirit to blow us in the direction He wants us to go, which is more like Christ. But we have to put the sail up. Putting the sail up is spending some time thinking about God, thinking about His ways, filling our minds with His Word. The discipline of our mind is not easy work. It is very, very easy. I know all about it, believe me. It is very, very easy to allow the negative of this life to completely overwhelm our thinking. And that's where anxiety comes from. It is hard work to discipline our mind. But we must develop the practice of alarms going off in our head when we're thinking thoughts that are not of God. And we need to take them captive, put them in jail. Don't let them come out. Try just one day. Get up, put a note on the mirror the night before and say, I'm gonna consciously be aware of what I'm thinking. Because most of the time we're not. We're just thinking. And that's when we get in trouble. Just ask yourself, what's your mind meditating on at any moment of the day? Are you even conscious that you're thinking? If COVID and the news causes you anxiety, if COVID and the news takes your mind off of God, then I would suggest you turn the TV off. Because you're filling your mind with that which makes you anxious. Start filling it with God's Word. Or if you want to leave the TV on, put it on some worship music or someone preaching a good sermon. There's a couple of websites out there I could point you to. But pray. Read. I love reading autobiographies of Christians. Fill your mind with those things that are positive, not negative. And Paul ends by saying, put into practice these things that you've seen me doing, and the God of peace will be with you. I don't know if there's a significance to the fact that the wording is different, but before he said the peace of God will be with you, and now he says the God of peace will be with you. The peace of God will be with us as we wrap our minds around God. The God of peace will be with us as we begin to obey what He's told us to do, to put into practice the things that God has ordained us to be on mission doing. Obedience is key to peace. Obedience is key to knowing the presence of God in our life. Can I just take the time to read this? I want to read it. This is from Charles Spurgeon. Any of you read morning, evening? This is from this, but it's Alistair Begg taking it and putting it into a little more readable English for us less dignified people. It's from Psalm 112:7. He is not afraid of bad news. Christian, You ought not be afraid of the arrival of bad news, because if you are distressed by such, you are no different from other men. They do not have your God to run to. They have never proved his faithfulness as you have done, and it is no wonder if they are bowed down with alarm and cowered with fear. But you profess to be of another spirit. You have been born again to a living hope, and your heart lives in heaven and not on earthly things. If you are seen to be distracted as other men, what is the value of that grace that you profess to have received? Where is the dignity of that new nature that you claim to possess? Again, if you should be filled with alarm like others, you would no doubt be led into the sins so common to them under trying circumstances. The ungodly, when they are overtaken by bad news, rebel against God. They murmur and maintain that God has dealt harshly with them. I read that this week, and I said, God, forgive me. Will you fall into that same sin? Will you provoke the Lord as they do? Moreover, unconverted men often run to wrong means in order to escape from difficulties, and you will be sure to do the same if your mind yields to the present pressure. Trust in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Your wisest course is to do what Moses did at the Red Sea. Stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord. For if you give way to fear when you hear bad news, you will be unable to meet the trouble with that calm composure that prepares for duty and sustains in adversity. How can you glorify God if you play the coward? Saints have often sung God's high praises in the fires, but when you act as if there were no one to help, will your doubting and despondency magnify the Most High? Take courage and relying in sure confidence upon the faithfulness of your covenant God, let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. Anxiety and worry are not of God. And I'm not talking about anxiety that is an illness. I'm talking about the everyday worries that we tend to dwell on. If we begin rejoicing, redirecting our thoughts toward God and praising him for all he's done for us and who he is, if we pray, if we seek to think about those things which are godly, those things which are good, God will give us peace. Dwell on God, not on the things of this world that cause your being to be divided. Here's the words to the song we're about to sing in closing. In these days of confused situations, in this night of restless remorse, when the heart and the soul of a nation lay wounded and cold as a corpse, from the grave of the innocent Adam comes a song bringing joy to the sad. Oh, your cry has been heard and the ransom has been paid up in full. Be ye glad. Oh, be ye glad, oh, be ye glad. Every debt that you ever had has been paid up in full by the grace of the Lord. Be ye glad, be ye glad, be ye glad. Joy and peace will never come from the things of the world, but we turn our focus to God and what he's done for us in Jesus Christ. He's paid our every debt. The only thing that can flood our being as we ponder on that is peace and joy. Let us stand as we sing.